I wasn't quite sure if I was ever wanting to come back to YouTube because I think at points I felt quite disconnected from it.
Do you think this season is a make or break season for Lampard?
I think that Chelsea need to back a vision.
There's this whole other side to you that I imagine a lot of your subscribers probably don't know too much about.
I think that if they'd happened to me, say pre-uni, I'm not sure how I would have coped with them.
Yes, people, welcome back to the Football and Feelings podcast. I am here with our guest this week. It's a man of balance, a man of great insight to Chelsea fans. It's Daniel Childs, also known as the son of Chelsea. How are you doing, man?
Well, a man of balance, that's a new one. That's a really good one. I mean, that's the one thing I'd want in Chelsea's midfield at the moment. So I'm glad I'm at least bringing the balance, because Chelsea don't seem to have a lot of balance at the moment. But thank you, man. Thanks for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's been a very interesting year in many aspects, especially in the football world as well. It seems like you've been very busy with a lot on your plate, football content-wise.
Yeah, it has. It's been interesting, really, in terms of the lockdown period, and personally for my channel, it's a funny. I guess it's a funny story. Like literally a week before lockdown happened, I was sort of looking at the channel and decided, I really want to grow it and really want to pursue making it bigger. And I was like, we're going daily content. And it was literally the last Premier League game before lockdown. And, got everything set up, got content set up, like new series, post-match stuff. And then literally 4 days later, the Premier League gets suspended. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, there's no football to talk about. And it was just about sort of improvising. And I think my channel benefited through being a channel that was consistent through a period where I think a lot of people didn't really know what to do. So it's been an interesting year, and it's great football's back now, and it was an exciting summer to be a Chelsea fan, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you run your channel full time? Is that what you do?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, at the moment. Since returning from uni, that's sort of been the goal and the pursuit. I think, like a lot of people my age, and I think some of my mates, I think it was lockdown sort of hit the most inopportune time, to be honest, because looking for work, especially in like media, filmmaking, that type of thing, there was a lot of job applications that seemed to be going somewhere, and then just were either the job became unavailable, and it just the position was no longer relevant, so that became difficult. But yeah, it's sort of become a pursuit over the past year to really grow the channel and see if it can become a full-time thing.
Class, man, class. Yeah, I know what you mean. For me, part of the reason that throughout lockdown, I was quite motivated for this podcast is because I was looking for work experience at that time, and it just wasn't happening. So I thought, fuck it, I'll make my own opportunity. Yeah, you got to work with these things. Let's dive into it then. On your channel and Chelsea, why did you start your channel? I know that's a really broad question, but you've been doing it for a while, right?
Yeah, I started it in 2014, and it was literally I'd just finished school and just finished GCSEs, and I think the excuse is I was bored one summer, and all I did was speak about Chelsea in sort of my spare time. And at the time, to be honest, there was the football sort of online YouTube stuff was starting to grow a bit. But in terms of Chelsea voices online, I mean, it was really small. Like it was literally like 2 channels I could watch at the time that were Chelsea sort of creators. And yeah, I just started making videos. I was very lucky that 2 of the biggest creators, Eunice and Jonah Ozeka, I just contacted them and said, hey, can we do a podcast? And I had like 0 subscribers. I'd not made a video yet, and they were very kind, and I collabed, and that's basically where it started. So it was from there really, and watching sort of the year previous, or sort of the fan channel stuff, the fan media stuff come about, and really grow, and wanted to sort of be a part of it, and felt that as a Chelsea voice, I could add something that probably wasn't there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's quite nice to see. I always appreciate fan channels that have like a not, I don't want to say unique, a balanced insight, because as fans, everyone knows that it's very easy, and yeah, it's easier to get views do you know what? I'm not really making any sense here. It's easier to get views if you're a bit more out there. Yeah. If you're trying to be controversial rather than trying to bring balance to the table. But as now you have how many subs do you have now? Like 15,000?
We just passed 16.
Oh, nice.
K the other day. So yeah, it was just literally past 16K.
Awesome, well done. But aside,
Thank you, man.
as well as producing content for these people, does the channel have a purpose for you? Does it do something for you? Is it like a release, or for you, is it more of like a work experience trophy sort of thing to have?
I think whether it's right or not to say, I think it is a form of, I guess, therapy, if that's too strong to call it. I think that it's something I've been doing since the age of 5 when I first went to see Chelsea. When I started supporting the club, it's a big part of who I am, being a Chelsea fan, and it's Chelsea, my local club. My family have supported the club for generations, so it's Chelsea in my family is a massive part of when we get together, or in terms of going to Stamford Bridge as a family at points, or just generally, it's I think it's so much more than just, hey, I support this club. I think for a lot of people, and most people relate to this if they support a football club, it's so sort of ingrained in you. It's so much more than just what happens on a Saturday on a pitch. I think it represents a lot of who you are. So I feel a sense of that as well. I feel, talking about when I started the channel, it hasn't been a straight road since 2014. I mean, anyone who looks at my channel, and the majority of my subs now were watching from last year when I restarted the channel, because I pretty much went to uni for 3 years and didn't touch YouTube. I'd almost sort of, given it up in a sense. And I guess, as I said to you at the start, it's there was this motivation at a point to come back and maybe once again give something that wasn't there. And I think you can sit there and moan about stuff that isn't there online, or you can do something about it. And that was sort of my feeling returning for last season.
Mm-hmm. That break you had away from YouTube, then was that quite welcome? Did you feel like you needed that, or was it you just wasn't really sure where you wanted to take it?
I think it was very relevant. I mean, going to university, I think, was such an incredible time for me, and I think the way the channel is now, and the format and the mindset behind the channel now, I think has to be informed by my experience at uni, even though it wasn't about football. It had nothing to do with football. Just the way I look at things, just the way I want to sort of dive deeper into things. And I think that there were a few moments, because I was involved in an early Chelsea fan channel, 100% Chelsea, and there were some things within there that I think I almost felt it was almost like putting it on pause, or putting it in the cupboard for a few years, and thinking, that could be something I could return to. But to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure. I think it was the 18-19 season with Sarri, and there was a lot of, if you're not a Chelsea fan, it was a very sort of toxic year in terms of fan sort of division, and I'd never sort of seen it at Chelsea before in my time supporting the club. So I felt it was sort of a great spark and a great point for me to come back and start talking again. So yeah, that was sort of where the inspiration came from. But I do think it was a weird time, because I wasn't quite sure if I was ever wanting to come back to YouTube, because I think at points I felt quite disconnected from it. I felt that, could this type of thing I want to do be successful? Could it attract, is there an audience out there for that? That was the big question.
Yeah, it can be quite nerve-wracking when you come back into it, I guess. But for my channel, I've intentionally avoided like super topical conversations about the game, about like what's coming up, because by the time I've edited it and released it, it's out of date. But for you, your turnaround must be absolutely rapid.
Yeah, sort of going daily, and it's an interesting thing. I mean, I like to think I put the motto sort of my channel, and I always, when I talk about the channel, I feel like I'm about to go in some sort of David Brent sort of character thing, where I always worry I'm going to sound like an idiot and sort of egotistical. But my motto is, quality over quantity, and that's very hard to do. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't really have that mindset. If I'd love to be able to put out one video a week, and if I could put all my energy into putting one video out a week, that'd be amazing. And maybe there could be a day for that. But unfortunately, the harsh reality of the way the algorithm works, that's not what YouTube wants. I think it's always that balance of quality and quantity. And, when I edit my videos, I don't ever put out a video that I don't rewatch. the full way through. I'm very focused on what I say. If there's something in there that I said that I think sounds wrong, or I'll probably just cut it out. I'm in terms of the turnaround, so it isn't just rushing. I do a lot of my stuff is fact based. A lot of my stuff comes from what I believe to be respectable sources in terms of news, and I care a lot about that. But it is that, I'm sure, like a lot of YouTubers face, it's that sort of balance between quality and quantity. And of course, not every video is going to be a 10 out of 10, because that's just life. You can't expect that to be the case every day. But at least that's what I try to do, even if there are videos out every day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. For you, is there a buzz to get a video out as soon as possible then? Because if you're doing it after like a press conference or there's breaking news, does that give you a thrill to get the video out as quickly as you can?
Yeah, if it's like, I think if there's been a big win, if Chelsea have won a game, you want to sort of share your excitement about it. Or very relevant to over the summer, some big signings that Chelsea made, and there's a lot of excitement over that. And you sort of want to share in sort of the relief of the player signing and give your opinions on it. No BS. I have pre-recorded some stuff before, because to really, once again, sort of go in depth on an idea and sort of delve into, say, Kai Havertz signing for Chelsea. I have a lot more to say about that. And I think recording it in the moment, I'm worried I'm not really going to get all that sort of stuff out and all the points I want to make about why I think that's an amazing signing for Chelsea. But yeah, there is that buzz to get stuff out there and to know that there's an audience there who are either, waiting for your content or want to watch it and care about what you say. I think that's a very empowering thing. So it's there is that buzz, absolutely, especially for a club like Chelsea.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's move on to Chelsea briefly. Chelsea, they've sort of got this reputation now of having slightly throwaway managers, I suppose. But do you think this season is a make or break season for Lampard? Do you think he's got another year of sort of novelty left in him? Because now he's got that extra weight on his shoulders that he spent this money, and obviously last year he did not have that luxury.
I think I can only speak for myself, and I've, you make a relevant point. I mean, to anyone who's not a Chelsea fan, that would be the impression. And I think that's something as a fan myself, just going to the bridge and caring about the club, that's something I want to see changed. Not only because I think that Chelsea continuing to have that mindset has put us further and further back into, if we want to talk about, winning the Premier League. I just don't have the stomach for it at the moment. Like, I think that it's that emotional thing of you get invested in a manager's ideas and you're like, oh, I want to see this go somewhere. And then it's cut short. And you're like, oh no, then we have to go through the whole process again of learning about a new manager. What is this manager's ideas? I think that there's a sense for a lot of the years where Chelsea fans are conditioned to believe that's the way things are supposed to be. And you can't really argue with it because the success kept on coming in and in. But I think in terms of Lampard, I don't think, unless it's a whole disaster this year and we're finishing 10th and, it's really regressed. No, I think that Chelsea need to back a vision, whether Lampard's the right man or not. I think that I just want to see something given a little bit more time. I want to see something, it's like reading a book or seeing a film and the last 10 minutes or there's half an hour gone out of the film. I don't want to see that, because I think what Lampard represents to a lot of fans, it'd be so special, Lampard winning anything at Chelsea. I think it would.
Yeah,
not
romantic,
even particularly a Premier League. Yeah, even for me, an FA Cup or a League Cup would mean, I think, as much to a lot of people as a Premier League title. So I don't think that. I think it's very easy to. The unfortunate thing about outside the club, whatever I think as a fan and what Chelsea fans think, until Chelsea give a manager 3 or 4 years, that sort of perception's always going to be there, and you can't really argue against that. So it's wishful thinking for me at the moment, but my hope is that's where Chelsea is sort of going with Lampard, because I think it's the right way of going about things, and I think hitting the reset button would be a stupid move once again.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. As an Arsenal fan, I'm still acclimatizing to the idea that we haven't got a manager for 20 years, as I was used to with Arsene Wenger. That's all I knew in football. And I always probably look down at clubs that had a quick turnaround of managers. It's like, you have no idea what you're doing. But I mean, but like you said, it's worked for Chelsea. But it is such a such a romantic story, the Lampard story, much like the Arteta one could be now. If it goes well, it'll feel so much better than it would if it was just a random manager, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we were in the ground last year, and I think that's something that's difficult at the moment because, especially as Chelsea have had frustrations at the start of this season, I think it's social media can sort of lead you down a path of thinking that Lampard's there's more fans critical of Lampard or sort of against Lampard than there actually is. And unfortunately, social media is not a great place to sort of, I think, to be a barometer of sort of fan sort of feeling or supporter feeling. I think, being in the ground is such an important thing. And really, you can, I think, even though this is harsh and, most, Arsenal, Chelsea, big clubs, it's international. Of course it is. And you've got to value that and understand that. But I do think the best barometer is in Stamford Bridge. And last season at Stamford Bridge, there were some very special moments that I was there to see under Lampard, and the connection and unity that meant so much. There was, the 4-4 against Ajax, which is, one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. And the ecstasy there, it just felt on another level. It felt with Lampard, and it feels with Lampard every time we win. It means a little bit more, even if it's a win you expect to get, say, as Chelsea. Every goal seems to mean a little bit more. And those are very sort of, I guess, cliched terms, but that's generally the way it felt, I think, for a lot of Chelsea fans last year. I think there was a lot of fans who felt disconnected from the club the previous year, or maybe the year before that felt reconnected with Lampard coming in. It does feel like potentially a new era. It does feel like this could be a real turning point for the club of sort of rebuilding and going in a new direction, to hopefully bring us more success in the coming years. But to me, it's just enjoyable seeing a coach that we all love, we all back, and I think has the club's best interest at heart. He loves the clubs, and he's a brilliant spokesman for the club as well. He speaks for Chelsea fans, which I think sometimes maybe in the past, not to the coaches' faults themselves, whether they're foreign managers coming into a new culture and the media spinning their words because they don't have the greatest grasp of the English language. I know Unai Emery unfortunately fell victim to this. Lampard absolutely is that guy who's speaking for Chelsea fans on a regular basis, which is good.
Yeah, you can definitely see that as well from the outside. Have you ever had like a lot of built up frustration towards the club and the sort of content that revolves around that? Has there ever been a period where you thought, like, I don't even want to make this content? Obviously, apart from the hiatus you took over university, has there ever been a period where you felt like you needed to take a break, but maybe you didn't?
No, because I think my idea is like, I think that if I stop doing it, then, and if I'm not giving my opinion, and who is, it sounds egotistical, but it's like, who is, as I was saying when I decided to get back into YouTube, was who's giving that view, who's going to, no one's going to say what I want to say in the way I want to say it, and you're just allowing that negativity or sort of overreaction to fester. I think I have to use that sort of frustration or negativity for motivation to create something good. So I think that's the thing. I don't, in terms of your question, I think it's very relevant to the period where I was just about to come back to YouTube in the Sarri season. I think if you're relevant to your question, I think that's when I was building up most frustration in terms of the fan reaction, in terms of the divisiveness, in terms of the way some people with a big platform were speaking about fellow fans, and I felt it was really toxic and negative, and that was my sort of burning sort of motivation to get back into the game. So no, I really haven't had that. Of course you have down days, but that's not really relevant to football. We all have those. It's just, do I feel like making a video? Do I feel like getting in front of camera and expressing? Especially after a bad result, you have to sort of calm yourself down. But no, I think that sort of motivation to talk about Chelsea is always there because it's a massive part of my life.
Yeah, of course. You're very active on Twitter, extremely active. How do you have much of a balance there? Or how do you not get sucked into like the dark sides of football Twitter? Because I try to keep it at an arm's length at all times. Like I'll go onto it when I want to post. I'll go through it occasionally, but I don't post too often. Otherwise, I just end up looking at replies, and it just messes with my head when you surround yourself with that negativity that is so prominent on Twitter. But how do you keep that at arm's length if you do?
Recently, I've started using TweetDeck, which is an amazing way to really sort of like nail down the things you want to see in terms of leaving out negative voices. So like I've a tweet deck is a great way you can sort of file sort of folders of sort of lists of your favorite accounts. And
Right.
because if you just go on Twitter, usually it's a complete mess, that timeline. Like you'll see football, you'll see politics, you'll see news, I'll see film, and it's just all a massive mess and a blur, and it's like it's very hard to sort of connect to it. So I've been using TweetDeck, which I think has been helpful in the sense of I have voices on there that I respect, that I engage with on a regular basis, whether that's guests I've had on the channel, stats and analysis people, sources for the clubs, so like the top journalists and stuff. So that I find that sort of way of going about things has definitely helped me. I think that in terms of getting down the dark paths of Twitter, of course, sometimes you can get frustrated by the reactionary way of doing it, but I think it's very easy to shut that stuff off. I think that it's a challenge we all have, I think, nowadays with social media, but I don't feel like I am dragged down by Twitter. I think I've done periods where I've just deleted Twitter off my phone and I've been done with it. I've turned notifications off, all that stuff. So it's, even though I'm very active, there's a lot of times where I'll just post something and I'll leave it. I think that's probably a positive way. That's the way at least I deal with it. I don't know if that's the way others deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a good approach to take. I'm trying to get into that habit of posting, whether that or not that's a video upload or a podcast upload. When I upload it, I want to be able to leave it. Otherwise, I'll sit there refreshing, seeing how many views and how many likes it's getting so quickly. But let's move away from that sort of content creation side on YouTube, because there's this whole other side to you that I imagine a lot of your subscribers probably don't know too much about. The fact that you're very passionate about screenwriting and directing. Once again, on this podcast, I try to show how people aren't one-dimensional in that football world. Yeah. Otherwise, we make it all about that, and it's not all about that. So how did this passion develop for you?
I think it almost goes hand in hand with my love for Chelsea. I mean, in terms of wanting to tell stories from a very early age. I mean, I could probably make an argument that it was actually before going to see Chelsea. And it's always sort of been sort of level, I think, all through my life, in terms of my love for whether that's writing stories, filmmaking, films, even at an early age, musical theatre, which was sort of and going to see stage shows. That was like going to the London Palladium at an early age. That was sort of the doorway into like performance and storytelling and art and stuff like that. So that was a big thing for me. And I remember from a very early age wanting to make films. It was always there. And I think that, as I said, going to uni, it was a massive moment for me because it was something I'd been sort of planning for a long time. It was a goal of mine to go uni and study filmmaking and make films myself, make a couple of short films, write scripts. So it's a big part of who I am. And I think mentally it's great because it's a great escape from football sometimes when it becomes a bit too much. So I do have that other focus that I can rely on. Like my closest mates are not interested in football at all. We don't talk about football. They they make jokes about how stupid football is. And I love that because it's, someone who speaks about Chelsea on a daily basis and makes videos and is very much involved in all that stuff. It's great to escape and talk about, the new Avengers film or the new, Tarantino film or, whatever it is. I love that. So yeah, it's a defining moment for me. I remember going to see Scott Pilgrim versus the World at the age of 13. And I remember seeing that film from, Edgar Wright film is Edgar Wright's my favorite director. And that was like a defining night of my life. I just knew from that moment I wanted to make films. I wanted to become a director. So it's been a burning passion in my life. It's very much 50-50 with Chelsea in my opinion. And so, yeah, that just because I'm doing YouTube videos doesn't mean that passion has died at all. It's still a relevant daily part of my life too.
Is that maybe where you see your long-term future?
I think so. I think that's still my goal. I think I'd be disingenuous if I say my life goal, sort of one of my big life goals, isn't to get into filmmaking, make a film myself, make a feature film. I think that's still a big goal of mine. I think that it depends on how the next few years go, and I think it depends how Son of Chelsea develops. Because as I say, it is a bit of a 50-50 sort of love thing with me in terms of football and film. And I think that it's that sort of left and right thing. But then, if I could create a situation where the dream scenario is having either both work together, so you could make like Chelsea documentaries and films, or be able to do YouTube, but also be able to do filmmaking stuff on the side that's not at all connected to football. I think that's the dream scenario, isn't it? But yeah, I'd say that's still a massive goal of mine. So yeah, it's a massive part of who I am, and yeah, I think it allows me. I think it also allows me. I think it's very easy to separate those two things, but I think that the way I look at my channel, the way I care a lot about like my production value of the channel and the way I edit, I think is very much out of filmmaking and very much out of storytelling and stuff like that. So I think that they absolutely are connected, even though I think to a lot of people, they would seem very, very different.
How long does it take you from like the start of a video idea, from writing it to do you, I imagine you script sort of what you're going to say in your videos?
Yeah, sort of. I guess bullet points is sort of a better way of going about. I mean, it's different for different videos. Like, usually, so let's just say like Let's Talk Chelsea, which is like my news show, which is the most, the only series I think I sort of do the most episodes in a week, right? So I usually do 3 to 4 episodes of that in a week, and that's I think very easy because you're taking inspiration from news stories in the media about Chelsea, and so I will. Whether that's the night before or the morning of before I record the video, I'll research those stories. I'll, look at the articles. I'll look at maybe other articles that are relevant to that story. And, it's not like you touch on every story. I will only touch on stories I have something to say about.
That's good. That's important as well. Otherwise you'll just lose yourself.
There was sometimes where I haven't put a video out in one day because I'm not gonna either. It's a topic I've gone over and over again, and it'd be especially Kai Havertz. That's a great example where it'd have been very easy for me almost every day to put Kai Havertz in the title of my video. But there was about a 2 or 3 week period where nothing really massive was happening in terms of him coming to Chelsea, and I was like, until there's a massive breakthrough here, I've said what I've needed to say on Kai Havertz coming to Chelsea, and that's it. And then luckily, eventually, he did sign for Chelsea, which is great because we could then talk about it a bit more. But yeah, so it's sort of breaking down those stories and looking at those stories and then giving my opinions on them and then going from there, sort of scripting it. I wouldn't say it's a script in a sense. It's not like a teleprompter thing where I'm reading through point by point. There's sometimes where if I'm looking at a player, I may read out like extracts from scout reports that I've read and very much linking it back to where I got it from. I'm very big on sort of linking where I've got sources from and putting them all in my description box, which I think unfortunate because I've heard journalists like Matt Law say, I don't mind people sharing my stories, but as long as they share them in the link of their videos, that's fine with me. So that's always what I've done. But yeah, that's sort of the way it goes in terms of setting up a video. And I think that if you're connected to Chelsea and if you're connected to just football, I think you have these debates and you see these debates online and you can sort of formulate where you are in terms of that. And I think it's very easy for me to just go bullet point. And so sometimes I don't even get to all of them in a video. Sometimes it would just be like, oh, actually, I'll go off in this tangent. So I think it's about having that structure, but it's also having that ability to sort of maybe sometimes go off script. So yeah, I hope I didn't follow that question or go off on too much of a tangent because I think it is different for different videos. Sometimes you do need if it's a big story, like if it's something that I really need to get a lot of point, like Project Big Picture the other week was a great example of this, where getting all of the actual info of it, because it was a very complex sort of story with a lot of different bullet points and a lot of different areas you could sort of dive into. But in other stories, I can sort of just go, this is one story, but I've got an opinion that's relevant that I could jump off of here. So yeah, that's sort of the way I go about things.
Is that the part you enjoy most, like the planning it and working out the structure and like basically like the screenwriting of it?
I guess in a sense, I think it's quite easy to do now. There's a rhythm to it, and it's sort of just like second nature, where you just go. I'm sure it's just like for a lot of people, there's the schedule. There's you get into a rhythm of doing it, and sometimes when you start a video, you think, oh, am I going to be able to do this again? I think there's always that self-doubt when you hit the record button. You're like, oh, am I going to be as good as I was yesterday, or am I going to be as confident as I was yesterday in front of camera? And you just do it. It's like I make it like and relate it to working out, which is a big part of my life now in terms of fitness, where there's a lot of time where you think, am I going to get through this workout? It's going to be tough, but you end up doing it, and you're after the workout and you think, where did that time go? Did I just put myself through that? Like, yeah, I think it's to say, it's not that I'm not present for my videos. I'm not trying to say like I'm just like phoning in videos. It's more that to say that there's one part. I think I enjoy all of the elements at the same time. I enjoy planning what I'm going to say. This is sort of the point I want to get across in this video, to recording it, which is the most difficult part of it, and then editing it, and sort of whether that's the graphics or just, the way it's going to look, and trying to improve something from the other day. I think they're all parts of it I enjoy.
Awesome. You clearly have a lot of creative energy inside you that you need to get out in one way or another. But in terms of this creativity, whether that's with your YouTube channel, whether that's with filmmaking, is there like not an end goal, but is there like a benchmark that you want to reach? Like, that's the idea you had with making maybe like Chelsea documentaries, that sort of thing. Is that like a goal you want to reach, and then you'll be like, wow, okay, yeah, so I've sort of fulfilled what I wanted to do?
I think the problem is, and as you said, with like creative energy, and I think my biggest, it's hard for me to say, but I think if I was just being really sort of self-critical, I think my biggest strength is also in a way my biggest weakness. I think that my biggest strength is that I think that I can have ideas, big ideas for projects, and want to go in a direction, and I'm going to go 100% on this thing, and I'm going to try and make it the best it can be. And I have really big ideas, but then there is that other side to it of, even when you get success or you feel like there's improvement, you're always looking at the next thing. There's always tomorrow. I don't live with regrets. I hate looking back. I hate, dwelling on the past, but it's that overthinking things or putting too much pressure on yourself that I think that has been a constant struggle. It's almost a daily struggle, and I think that's the issue for a lot of people. In terms of an end goal, I have massive goals for Son of Chelsea, because I think I'd love to turn it into some form of like a media company where it's not even just me on the camera potentially, and it can sort of broaden out. But then also, turning my feature film ideas into reality. I have big ideas about that as well. So I guess that's the problem as well, is that having all these big ideas. It's I think it's a constant struggle of sort of your expectation and sort of being happy with where you are right now. I think that's something that I've struggled with, of constantly looking forward, constantly thinking about, I got to do this, and always looking sometimes years in front of you, rather than just appreciating where you are right now. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's, when you asked that question, that's instantly what came to mind, because I think that that's something where this year I should be really happy with the channel, because it's gone, like my expectation was 10K at the end of this year. And we hit 10K in July, and then 15K, and we hit 15K in September. And now, there is a possibility maybe we could hit 20K. And sometimes you get down because maybe it's not hitting the way you want it to hit. And I think appreciating that is a big part, and something that I think I have to work on every day, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's exactly the same for me. Sometimes, like, when I first started doing this podcast, especially when I started recording an episode, I was already thinking about the edit. I'm already thinking about when it's going to come out. Whereas I've tried to sort of channel that energy differently, and to just try to fucking relax, really, and just enjoy the conversation. Otherwise, I was saying to Blue Van Man on the podcast a few weeks ago, I was saying, if I'm focused on the end product and the views that it gets, then in years in the future, like I won't know how that sort of shaped who I am as a person, rather than slowing it down, enjoying the process. Okay, we are back. Sorry, we had some technical issues there, people, but we're back. I'm not entirely sure where we left it off, but I wanted to dive into another segue anyway, talking about university life for you and how that sort of shaped the person that you are. Because for me, I'm in third year now. I'm a mature student technically, but I found it quite interesting to see how it shaped people around me and how it shaped myself. So for you, how do you think your university life has sort of contributed to your character?
I think it's contributed massively. I think going to uni was such a big thing for me, in terms of getting away from London and living independently and meeting new people and just, being, I'm a naturally introverted person. So I think meeting new people and sort of living that way, I think was massive. I think it was, 50-50 split for me in terms of the work that by the end of it, I loved it even more and more. By the time we got to third year, I was so involved with it. And I think that, that was not the way it was sold to me. A lot of people who've been to uni before say, oh, you'll hate third year. But no, I actually, by the time we got to third year, I loved, because it gave me such a great structure. I was able in my life at uni to create such a brilliant structure, which is something I'd wanted before, in terms of, mixing with fitness and, waking up, early and having those independent things that you want to have, and meeting amazing people. Like I was so blessed that the people I lived with at uni were some of the greatest people, I could have ever hoped to live with and meet and become close mates. And, it's no exaggeration of whether they say this or not. I treat, they were like family to me. So it was an amazing time and an amazing place. And it was, I think also just what university gave me was not only that independence and, looking at the world a different way in terms of thinking more deeply about subjects. And I think that's really helped me with football in terms of my analysis or sort of the way I think about football now, and questioning something a little bit further than just looking at it. It was the same with like when we were studying film or TV at uni, and it's not just about watching something and think whether this was good or bad. It's, the symbolism behind things. I know that this may sound pretentious to people who, sort of roll their eyes at these things, but I found it really useful in terms of relating it to other things I do. But I think it helped give that perspective of the world, of feeling positive about things and taking challenges that I had at uni. And were not even that relevant to uni. You have things that happen to you in life just naturally. And I had some massive moments throughout my time at uni where I think that if they'd happened to me, say pre-uni, I'm not sure how I would have coped with them. Mm-hmm. But the fact I had an amazing support system around me and some amazing friends, and I think I was in a place that motivated me to become a better person, I think helped me. So uni will forever be, I think, at the moment, I think it is, the best 3 years of my life. I think there's no doubt in that. And I think that there's a lot of debate at the moment whether uni's worth it, and I can understand that. I'm a live and let live guy. I'm not preaching that everyone has to go to uni, because some people, whether the upbringing they've had, maybe that's not the right moment for them, and that's absolutely cool. But for me, it was the perfect sort of fit. It just was absolutely everything I needed at that point. At the age of 18, it helped me get out of my bubble in London. It helped me experience life, and it helped me meet some amazing people and achieve some great things. So I'm so grateful for that time, because I'm so much a better person for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uni shaped me as well, but my experience was quite different. I was 23 when I started, and I remember sitting there on my first day. 23, I felt like I'd done quite a lot of maturing before that. And I've had some life experience under my belt, and I was sitting with all these 18-year-olds who I could see were just not confused, but they just weren't overly comfortable in themselves. And I actually found that really like nurturing and quite comforting to see, because like sometimes for me, because I was 23, I sometimes forgot how key that experience is to shaping the person that you are. But yeah, it is amazing. And one of the main things you're paying for at university, there is, like you said, a lot of controversy over whether it's worth it. But I think that's just almost a pointless debate, in my opinion. You're paying to be around these people that otherwise you would not be in a room with.
Yeah,
quite simply, like you wouldn't. Like whether or not that's friends, whether or not that's professionals. I imagine for you in your field of work, I imagine that sort of, it's a very tight knit network. I imagine that opens up a lot of avenues for you.
Yeah, well, you meet a lot of people who, especially just speaking on a filmmaking course, because I really exception of one of my close mates, Ethan, I didn't really live with film people in terms of people on my course. But the great thing about the people on your course is they have a love for film, but they come at a very different angle to you. And what really helped me in terms of filmmaking was opening my eyes to new types of films, new ways of looking at film. And yeah, it helps you. And, we did, several short films, and anyone who's tried to make a film before, I think it's such a great, when anyone tries to spin it to you that filmmaking is, an easy an easy course or an easy way of doing things. Go on a film set, wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and go to some freezing beach in in Bognor and try and film where it's raining, it's pouring, and you can barely feel your fingers, but you're there because you love filmmaking and you want to create something special. So it was also those moments were really tough. They were tough because they questioned, how much I loved film and whether I really wanted to do this. I had some difficult moments. And that's another great thing I think uni does. It gives you those moments of it really tests I think your resilience and tests the way you think. I think there's a lot of rubbish online now about what unis are in terms of being these echo chambers. I never found that. That was never the reality of my uni. As I say, I can only speak for my uni, and that's only anecdotal because that's only the people I lived with or the course I was on. But you had so many different beliefs and points of view, and you would debate those points of view, and I think that was amazing. So I think that the image that uni is this place where everyone goes in, thinks the same things, and comes out thinking the same things. That's not the case at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's interesting. The being down in Bognor in the freezing cold. That's like the football equivalent of being at Stoke on a Tuesday night.
I've been at Stoke on a Tuesday night watching Chelsea, so I can make Bognor was definitely more difficult because at least there was no singing, there was no chanting, so Bognor is definitely worse on a what was it? I think it was a Monday morning, which was even worse after a Sunday, 4 a.m. on a Monday morning, and it was like early February, and it was minus something. And
God,
so I prefer Stoke away personally.
Yeah, that does sound awful. Okay, right. So we're towards the sort of end of this podcast. I always open it up now with some long ball questions, which are some of them are quite deep, some of them are just very reflective. But let's just dive into it. How would you spend your last day on Earth? So you can do anything. Physics won't get in your way here. So if you want to travel to every place possible, you can. You could do anything.
Oh, that's a really tough question.
Do you want me to fill the time whilst you have a think?
Yeah, put some lift music on.
Yeah.
I think it would be spent with probably close friends and family. I think if that was to getting everyone I deeply care about in a room and spending time with them would probably be the way I'd do it. That's maybe a cheesy and like sort of a stereotypical answer, but that's the one way. I mean, if you talk about physics, go in a time machine and speak to your younger self and tell them everything's going to be okay. Maybe that's the sort of the narrative or filmmaking way you do it. But no, I think that would be the way I would do it because I care very deeply about my family and my friends. I think that some of the best therapy I've ever had in my life at down moments is just sitting around with mates and laughing. Some of the best therapy I've had. So yeah, that would probably be my answer for that.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with that. Except I'd do it on a beach in Bali. I'd somehow transport everyone there. Next question: do you have any major life regrets?
No.
Straight off the bat.
No, I don't live my life with regrets. There's nothing to be gained out of that to me because I think you're going to have down moments. And this is, I'm preaching here, but this doesn't mean that I don't struggle with these things on a daily basis and you don't have moments where you feel like you regret something, but I don't in long term, no, because I feel that there are even the most negative moments I've had have shaped me. If they didn't it's like that sort of butterfly effect. If that thing didn't happen to me here, I would not be the person I am today. So I don't live with regrets because I think they just pull you down. I think, what do you want to live your life by? Just thinking about yesterday and thinking about something that you did 5 years ago and constantly thinking that's going to pull you down. I think that living in the moment is something we spoke about earlier is so important. So no, regrets are really toxic to me. I don't live with them at all.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I used to be sort of a regretful person, I think, but now I realise that even maybe not so good decisions that I have made have shaped who I am now. And I don't think I'd change anything if I went back personally. Is there anything at the top of your bucket list, if you have one, that is?
Probably to make my big feature film idea a reality. That's probably top. Someone said to me, you can only do, that's not the question you asked. Sorry to spin it, but if, if someone said to me, you could only do one, that would be it. So my big sort of feature film idea, the script I've written, that would be it really. I think that I'd feel satisfied, even if it absolutely bombed and it was the worst thing I could sort of say. Just behind that would be living in America. That would be probably second to me.
Wow, really? Two very contrasting things there.
Yeah. So that would probably be a second, but yeah, film, making my big film idea a reality would be sort of top of that list probably for me.
Awesome. And yes, before you ask, I will be in it. Don't worry. I can be an extra. Don't worry. Okay, next question. What is one thing that your subscribers or your followers may not know about you?
I think they probably wouldn't. As we said at the start of this, I was really into musical theatre. There was a time before I wanted to become a filmmaker, I wanted to, be in the West End on stage. And I went to a stage school. Michael Ball is one of my biggest heroes and role models and influences in life. Watching him at the West End on stage at the age of 4 was a massive part. And as we were talking about all these things connecting, I think that my love for musical theatre and stage shows was so relevant to me loving filmmaking and storytelling. So that would probably be what, I went to stage school and there was a long period of my life in sort of childhood. That's sort of one of my biggest dreams was getting on stage and performing. So yeah, that's probably something they don't know, definitely.
Class. And the final question of the day, what does your ideal life look like?
You talking about like a day, or are you talking about the sort of
your big life picture, I suppose. Like, I don't actually, in my opinion anyway, I don't actually believe that there is an ideal life. I don't think that concept really exists. But if you were to paint it, how would you paint it?
I think being able to tell stories, being able to go to sleep every night feeling that you've achieved something in that day, and being humble, I think is a massive part of my life, and sort of trying to be better than I was the day before. And I think that's a very simple thing. I could sort of give you an idea of dream picture of being in New York with a flat and having an Oscar and winning an Oscar and giving my massive speech. But I think that's a basic thing, because those things are massive goals and massive dreams. But I think the basic thing that I could sort of do now, I'm doing, that you try and attempt to do now. So I think that's it. And, loving your family, loving your friends, aiming for self-improvement, which I think is a massive part of my life, definitely over the previous years. So yeah, that would probably be the way I'd go about phrasing it and answering your question, because I think that's important to me.
Class, man. Love it. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great to have you on. There'll be links in the description to find Daniel's page, especially if you're a Chelsea fan. I really recommend you have a look. Very balanced views that he's got there. Really insightful, really creative as well. But we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for listening to the Football and Feelings podcast, and thank you to Daniel again. Cheers.